Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Fix Your BS, where we talk about belief systems in 5 major pillars: relationships, business and career, health, faith or belief, and finances or money. And I try to find the best people that are so successful in any or all of those categories to give you the simple tasks or simple strategies to make sure you can build the life you want under your terms. And so I have found someone that fits multiple categories, and I'm so excited to bring her today. Lauren Zoeller is a 7-figure entrepreneur, host of the Aligned Love podcast. She's a speaker and an author. As the founder of the Aligned Love Experience, Lauren is an expert practitioner in reparenting, generational healing, and somatic experiencing. Through her work, she created the proprietary voice activation method that has been used to help thousands of men and women heal from the past trauma and take ownership of their future. She's a certified dating and relationship coach, and her insights have been featured on the Drew Barrymore Show, the New York Post, Business Insider, Medium, NBC News, Goalcast, Shape Magazine, Ask Us Beauty, and other international media outlets. She often speaks on topics such as embodiment, attachment theory, somatic experiencing, and leadership. Her business endeavors are dedicated to help building schools for underprivileged children in Honduras with the Boundless Foundation, a philanthropic organization whose mission is to end generational cycles of scarcity and poverty, which is something I think we need right now in America. Lauren, thank you for appearing on this podcast. It is such an honor.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat today.
Absolutely. I'm sure the first question that most people ask is, what is somatic experiencing, which I learned a little bit about while you were speaking. But before we get to that, my favorite question is, what is success to Lauren?
Success to me is knowing safety in my body and having that truly be the baseline in which I operate on a daily basis. Because I feel like the majority of people out there, A, don't know what success feels like from a safe perspective, and B, they live their day-to-day in this chaotic mess of feeling like the plates are going to drop at any moment. So having that safety and knowing that safety in my body means I'm tapped into success, regardless of what's happening externally.
That is so true. Like, so many people are out there living in fear, anxiety, worry, stress, depression, and they don't really even know it. They're not even aware of it. Is there a way that you use the things that you've done and somatic experiencing and those type of things? Do you really work on helping people become aware of that? And if you do, how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, in essence, that's what somatic experiencing is. It's learning where patterns of protection have replaced our patterns of connection. And so when you're looking at the nervous system and you're looking at, okay, what happened in my past that created this relational rupture, this rupture in the way that I feel safe with myself, and also the way I feel safe with money, the way I feel safe with my spouse or future spouse or potential spouse, the way that I feel safe in relationship to my health. How do I actually feel in my relationship to everything in my life? And if it doesn't feel like it comes from a place of connectedness and peace and joy and ease, that's a pretty big sign that you're operating out of survival. You're operating out of protection. And so in essence, what somatic experiencing does, and of course, I practice it for myself, but that's what I guide others through, is it teaches you how to go into those survival patterns, into those relational ruptures, and get to safety so that you can have that healthy, calm, connected, peaceful relationship with everything in your life, right? It starts with you.
Yeah, that is so awesome. And it's so interesting to me, the people that I talk to that are extremely successful in multiple areas aren't just successful in money or business. They're successful in feeling contentment, feeling fulfilled, and they have this ease about them. I was just at a seminar this weekend, and the guy running it had me speak in a little bit, but he is so good at just being content in life of where he's at. There's an ease about him. It's such an attractive quality because you don't feel angst or nervous or any emotional fear around them. You see those people, you sit next to them and they're nervous. You can just feel it. They're just like, why are you nervous? And if someone is feeling that while they're listening to this and that aligns with you and that really resonates with you, there's a reason for that. Lauren can help you with that. Like, that's what she does. I listened to her on stage and I was like, this is so impactful that it can help so many people out there. And we're trying to do that. We're trying to make the biggest impact to the most amount of people to where we can really help shift where we're headed as a country, but also as a society and in the world. So what are some things that, you would tell people to look out for to see if they're in that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In survival.
Right.
So it shows up differently in everyone, because truly, if we're looking at survival response patterns within the nervous system, there are 4. So there's fight, flight, freeze, and then there's fawn. And most people are like, what's fawn? Fawn means that you are a people pleaser. So you're in the space of discounting your truth to appease or be accepted by someone else. So I usually tell people, if you feel like you have worrisome racing thoughts, this is a sign that you're in flight. If you feel like you're really combative, or let's say that you notice that when you are in a business situation that you are quick to fire people, or you are quick to move on to the next thing, or you're quick to invest your money, there's this sense of urgency. That's a great sign that there's some sort of sympathetic charge, fight, flight in your system. Or if you notice that you live the majority of your day disconnected, or you're scrolling on social media because you're overwhelmed and you're disassociated, another sign that you're in disconnection, you're in the freeze response. So any of these patterns of protection that don't feel like you're truly present and you're truly connected are leading you to get curious around, okay, what happened in my life that led me to this moment where I feel like I need to scroll on social media, or, spend money frivolously to try to figure out the next business tactic, or fight with my spouse, or shut down. What are these protection patterns that are showing up? And how do we get back to safety as our baseline? So it's really looking at, okay, what isn't working? What doesn't feel good? And the chances are every person that's listening to this can probably resonate with something I said. And it's not that it never goes away. It's that you have to become curious and aware about those patterns. And through somatic experiencing, you can start to become in control of these triggers versus these triggers being in control of you. So it's just the game of getting curious. You just have to start getting curious around what isn't working.
That is so, so true. I mean, the pattern of awareness is like just becoming aware of, maybe I don't like the emotions that I'm experiencing on a regular basis. The emotions I experience are frustration and anger and doubt and fear and resentment and anxiety and all these negative emotions. And if you really take an emotional inventory of your day, what is the emotion that you're experiencing all the time? And then you have to ask yourself, well, what is that emotion? Where does it come from? Like, why is it there? And then that's when you can get into exactly what you're talking about. If you ask a person, that's 2 people sitting in a chair, and you go, hey, would you rather feel happiness or fear? They're going to go, well, happiness. Okay, so if you're feeling fearful all the time, how can we identify that and then turn it into happiness and contentment and fulfillment and joy, love and connection, and all these amazing, wonderful emotions that every single person can experience,
Mm-hmm.
So when you work with people, like, what is something that generally rises to the surface that you see on a regular basis that is very common that they're not even aware of? Is there a situation that generally occurs or is pretty common, or is it pretty random?
Yeah, well, I'll say, actually, going back to something that I want to highlight about what you just said, and I actually see this with most of my clients that make their way to me, is that, it's interesting. If you sit 2 people in a chair next to each other and you ask them whether they want to choose fear or happiness, of course, they're going to say they want to choose happiness. And I would say that the majority of women and men that make their way into my practice, they say, yeah, I know that I want to feel and choose happiness. And I do all these things to choose it, right? Like, I have my robust morning routine. I make sure that I say my affirmations in the mirror every day, and that I have a coach and I have a therapist, but yet I still feel fear. I don't understand why I can't choose happiness. And it actually drives me crazy when I see those signs that say choose happy. Because here's what I want everyone to hear. If your nervous system is in survival, if your nervous system is in a state of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn as its baseline, you can't choose happiness. You cannot. It is impossible. So all of these things that you're doing, right? All of these books that you're reading and these talk therapists that you're seeing and these morning routines that you're trying to execute, they're not getting to the nervous system. You're not looking at where is this pattern of dysregulation, this pattern of protection, this pattern of survival, and how can I regulate that dysregulated response in my system so that I can actually know what safety and happiness feels like. Most people are just putting Band-Aid over a big gaping wound. So what I'll say is that if you are listening to this and you have done a ton of mindset work and or you have had a talk therapist for an extended period of time, I don't care if it's been for 3 months, 3 weeks, or 3 years or 30 years, and you're that person that when you hear this, you think, wow, yeah, I'm doing all those things. Wow, yeah, I do have a therapist and I'm not getting the results I desire. It's because you're not looking at the nervous system. And until you start looking at and regulating your nervous system, you will continue to repeat these patterns. You will not be able to choose happiness and joy because your nervous system is seeking out survival instead of safety. So I would say that's the main thing. That's what I get the most in my practice is like I've invested $150,000, $250,000 in all these personal development courses, right, and therapists, and I still am not happy, right? And it's because we're missing that 80% of the healing puzzle, which is the nervous system.
You know, it's in my practice in the medical side, we do a lot of discussing about your brain will always go to the path of least resistance because your body is a survival mechanism. And if you have repeated the same neurological firing process over and over and over, it becomes the normal to you. It becomes who you actually are. And you have to actually be able to identify that root cause instead of just chasing the symptom in order to actually correct that. And that's exactly what you're saying, which is why I was so excited to have you on so people could hear this message because it's simpler. It seems so simple, like I should just choose to be happy. Well, I mean, yeah, that sounds simple, but looking at a mirror and smiling will help you. But if you don't retrain your body to have a different neurological reaction, you will have to do that maybe for a long time, potentially, to have that. But what are some ways that you help people with figuring out and then overcoming that neurological change?
Yeah. So I would say the first thing that I would tell anyone to do if they were coming to me, and again, through somatic experiencing, it is the experience itself of being with a trained practitioner and being in activation, being in survival, and having the practitioner lead you to safety to expand your body's capacity for more safety and for more resilience. So I would say first things first, like get in with a somatic therapist or get in with a somatic experiencing practitioner and actually work with a practitioner to create more safety in your nervous system, to know what that feels like. That's the first thing. The second thing I would say is I like to figure out what is an anchor that I can have for myself. And I always establish an anchor with my client. What is something that feels really safe to you? If you look around my desk right now, I have several anchors. I have a rock, a crystal, things that I know that I have established safety with in the past. Like I've looked at it and I know what safety feels like in my body, and I can pick it up and I can immediately go into that space of safety because I've worked to know that my brain can look at this thing that I pick up and it can immediately tap into safety. If you don't have anything around you, you can just play with having your feet on the floor and ask yourself, do I notice my feet on the floor? Right? What do I notice about my feet on the floor? Right now, if I was asking someone that, I would probably notice my feet feel warm. Like where the carpet meets my toes, it feels warm. And then all I do is I just focus on that warmth in my toes. And I let that spread because that warmth is your body coming into presence and you're able to expand that into safety. So anchoring. And then the third thing I would say is building what I call a resourcing practice. And when we think about, and I have a whole talk about this, but I actually think that morning routines are garbage. I don't think that they do a whole lot for people. And the reason being is because most people will slap on a piece of paper all these things that they need to do in the morning. And these things don't actually bring your nervous system into safety. So what I suggest doing is replacing your morning routine with a resourcing routine. And pick 2 to 3 things that you're going to do every single morning, commit to it, that feel really safe and juicy to your nervous system. So, for instance, and let me give you kind of a counter to this, if your nervous system is in a heightened state of flight as its baseline, sitting and trying to meditate is not going to be resourcing, okay? Because your nervous system is saying, it's not safe to be still right now. So for someone that has a hard time and is in a hyper state of flight, I would not suggest meditation in the morning. But how many gurus do we hear out there saying you've got to meditate? And if you don't have time, you need to meditate more. If your body's not in safety, you're not going to be able to meditate. So if that's you, and let's say walking feels really good to you, choose to walk every morning for 5 minutes, right? What we want to do is we want to build your nervous system's capacity for resilience. We want to build safety, one tiny little step at a time. And the next thing you know, maybe in 5 months from now, your body will feel safe enough to sit and meditate in the morning. But you have to be able to give your nervous system something to feel safe every single morning so that you can build that muscle. So pick 2 to 3 things that feel really good to you and then do them. Commit to them every morning.
You know, that is such a great point. And this is something I literally teach my mastermind clients, my one-on-ones. I literally was victim of what you just said for a long time. And I say victim because I was trying. I wanted to take control. I wanted to be somebody that was responsible for me. But I was falling a victim because I would go and look at Tony Robbins' routine. I would go look at Alex Hormozi's routine. I would look at Dan Martell's routine. I'd look at all these David Goggins' routine. And I'd be like, oh, I got to do that one. And then I would try it. And I'm like, this sucks. This doesn't work for me. Or I got to do that one. Oh, I don't, whatever. And what I found was in trying all those things, I really was getting an idea of where I literally felt safe, what I liked doing, what was most comfortable. So literally what you just said was, I wake up in the morning, I immediately grab my stuff. I do some stretching. I stretch in front of my coffee machine while it's brewing. I get a little whiff of coffee. I go take a walk. I'll do a little, stretching while I'm walking. I kind of repeat some stuff to me. I have a nice little mantra that I kind of repeat. So I kind of build myself up because so there are people that wake up and they're happy. They're just like ready to go. I wake up crabby. I wake up like I'm ready to go physically, probably like a flight routine, but my mental is like, oh, this sucks and this is going to be terrible. And so I literally have to help myself switch that. And I do that through actions that feel safe to me. So literally, that's what I'm talking. Or I don't know how many times I can say the word literally, but I went through that. And when you were on stage describing all this, I was thinking about my own life, like most people do. And I'm like, that is exactly what I did. And so I hope that really resonates with people. And what I teach people is find other people's routines of what they do, because you do have to have a disciplined routine to come into who you could be. You can't just randomly do stuff. You have to have some sort of disciplined routine in a positive way. But if it's working for you and it's moving in the right direction and it's enjoyable, keep doing it until you can move on to the next thing. When you become that person, then you're like, oh, now I want to try this and now I want to try that. There's a lot of people right now that are talking about cold plunging and jumping into, that in the morning. I wake up and first thing I do. I tried that, man. I don't like it. It sucks. It's terrible. Oh, you got to fight through the pain. I don't want to fight through the pain. I don't like doing it. I like doing my nice little warm up over time. And then about 9 o'clock, I could do that. No problem. But I had to learn that. And that's what I'm saying. Get into a routine and figure out what do you like? What do you need? And make it your own. Would you agree? Or is there anything you would add or change to that?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. And even going back to the cold plunging, yes, cold plunging is fantastic for your nervous system if you're resourced and you feel safe, right? And so what I want to say to that is just you've got to know, you really need to know what feels safe and what feels unsafe in your body. If you don't have that language, if you haven't learned, if you're just mindlessly going through the day, just doing what other people are telling you to do because you're supposed to be doing it, then chances are you're going to feel burned out. You're going to feel overwhelmed. You're not going to feel supported and resourced. And so I think what both you and I are saying is like, get curious about what you could do, but also listen to your body. What does your body want? What feels safe to your body?
And that's it. And have the courage to take action on that thing. Be aware of it. Go, this is good for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think so many people are scared to do what's right for them because of the fear of ridicule or the fear of being cast away. Do you see that a lot as far as people in your practice, or is that something that,
all the time? And again, not to just keep coming back to the nervous system, but I really do think I kind of jam out on it, and I really think it's the key to everything. But that is the fawn response, right? In action, in essence, like when if we break down what fawning is, it's that discount of truth because you're terrified of being rejected. And so people will go through their life never speaking their truth, right? And people pleasing all over the place. And the next thing they know, here's what happens when you people please. You start to build resentment. And resentment leads to anger. And anger leads to overwhelm and sadness. It's like this trickle effect. So what I need people to really, truly hear is that people pleasing is a trauma response. You had to go into survival at some point in your life. You needed to discount your truth to be accepted and to stay alive. Like your life was at threat at some point, right? Maybe you were a child and you couldn't have big emotions. It was too much for mom. And every time you had a big emotion, she told you to quit crying and go to your room. And so you learned to shut down your big emotions and not speak how you actually feel in fear that mom would not love you or in fear that mom would yell at you, right? And the problem with this is that this happens as a kid. Now we create these protection mechanisms, and then we become full functioning adults, and we're still trying to shut down our emotions in fear that mom's going to reject us. And it wrecks our lives. It wrecks our ability to have connection with others. It wrecks our ability to have a connection with money and with our health. So it's like, if you're not looking at these things, if you're not really diving deep into what is this dysregulated response in my system and how is it wrecking my ability to have connection, I promise you're not living a fulfilling life. So yes.
How would someone recognize if they are not living a fulfilling life, or a content life, or a happy life, or any of those positive emotions? How would somebody recognize that in order to even say, well, maybe there is something I should look into here?
Yeah. An exercise that I love to give people is take a moment to get still and get out a piece of paper. And I want you to write down what your dream life would look like. And there's a caveat to this. If money was not an option or a barrier, and if time wasn't a barrier. And then after you write that down, I want you to ask yourself, A, am I living this? B, am I on the path to living this? Truly, and get really honest with yourself. And most people will say no to both of those questions. They'll say, no, I'm not living this. And no, I don't have a path to get here. That's a big sign that you're not living in deep fulfillment and that you're not walking in your path and your purpose, right? And I think like purpose is such a buzzword and it's ridiculous, right? But when you're truly tapped into safety and you know what safety feels like, you aren't living any life other than your dream life. Truly.
Would you define safety as certainty? Like you just feel certain, you feel that calmness of certainty. Is that how you would define safety? Or
Yeah, I think it's certainty, but I also think it's presence.
Mm.
And there's a deep sense of knowing, right? And when we're in safety, we know that we're deeply supported because we hold the key to our reality. And so many people are walking around in survival, placing their reality on external circumstances and other people. And those are just big old fat trauma responses tied up in a bow.
I say that all the time, that very few people are living the life they want to live. They're living someone else's life that they were told to live.
Mm-hmm.
My parents, my grandparents, my teacher, my cousin, my friend, my whatever. And you talk about deeply unfulfilling and deeply unsatisfying, and the emotions that will come from that if you are year in and year out living a life that you know deep down inside is not your purpose, not your passion, doesn't light you up. It drags energy out of you. And do that for a decade. And I tell that a lot to the people. I'm like, 5 to 10 years from now is going to happen. And when it does, where are you going to end up? You've got to work on you. You know, that phrase, know thyself, that is such a huge phrase. And so many people are walking around living someone else's life because they don't know themselves. So is there something that you do or to help people know themselves better? Obviously, you've given some really amazing, simple things that people can take action on. But I mean, what do you do to tap into who they are and help them know themselves better?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would, if we're looking at the lens of relationships, I would ask these questions. I would ask a couple of questions. The first question that I would ask is, am I satisfied in my current romantic relationship? Now, if you have people that are single that really want to be in relationship and they're not in one, the answer to that's probably no. And let's say that you are in a romantic relationship. Maybe the answer is no or somewhat. So I would first ask that question. And then I would ask the question, how did my mother and father show me love? Right? How was I taught to give and receive love? And if you've never asked yourself these two questions and you've really written and journaled about it, some things will come up. And this is what I want everyone to know. Whatever is in your current reality when it comes to a relationship, if you have not done any work, is a direct reflection of the way that you were taught how to give and receive love. And until you start to ask yourself those two questions and get really real and honest with yourself, like if you're in a marriage and you're not happy because you feel like you both are on different, I talked to a woman today and she said, I got divorced because my husband and I just grew apart. And it got too far, right? Like we were just too far and there was no reconciling the relationship. And I was like, talk to me about your mother and your father. Right? She goes, well, my mom and dad were married. They went through a really tumultuous divorce when I was 6. And I said, yeah. So you were taught at a young age, right, to shut down and suppress your emotions. What we know about the nervous system is that our nervous system co-regulates with mom and dad from the moment of conception, which means if mom was in survival and dad was in survival, the only thing that you've ever known is survival. And then if mom and dad didn't emote with each other and the relationship imploded, that's also what you learned in your nervous system that love is supposed to look and feel like. So guess what? That's why you're repeating this pattern right now in your adult life. So I always start with romantic relationships because it is a direct reflection of your relationship to self, right? Your romantic relationship, whether you are satisfied or not, is a direct mirror of the way that you view yourself. So start there. And once you can start there and you can start to access and regulate those responses, then your relationship to money, your relationship to your health, your relationship to others, it'll all change, because it's all how you do one thing is how you do everything. And this is a great place to start with that.
I love that. I talk about that a lot too. And John Maxwell does the law of the mirror. Your outside world is a direct reflection of how you view yourself, what you see inside you. And so if you don't like your money situation, well, guess what? There's an internal viewpoint about money that is not allowing you to do the things that are necessary to become financially independent, or whatever your goal might be. You have to figure that thing out. And it is deeply rooted in your nervous system, because it starts in your brain, which is the center of control of the nervous system. I absolutely love the work you're doing, because this right here, the way you're explaining it, is so much deeper and even more scientific than when people say, well, I need to meditate more. Meditation is a tool. There's a lot of tools, a morning routine, all of these things. They're all tools, but the root is always right in here.
Yeah.
Right in here. Just look inside and figure out, if you don't like the current circumstances in your life, just look inside you. Don't blame. Don't show somebody else up. Say, how can I be better? How can I look inside and figure out what beliefs and thoughts and emotions, and in your case, what nervous system responses are occurring, so I can work on those.
Yeah. So true. It's so true. And I love that you pointed that out, because everybody needs to really hear that, especially in this industry, right? Sometimes that gets lost.
Yeah, there's so many in this industry, if we really want to get into that, there's so many coaches and gurus, if you will, that are or self-help people that really try to teach, this is the secret, this is the answer. And there is no individual one answer. There are a lot of different tactics and strategies, and you should try a lot of them yourself to experience them, not to solve your problem, but to say, how is this moving me in a better direction than I was going before? Until you figure out what works for you, and don't get frustrated in the process. But, so many people come to me, and I'm sure they do the same thing, and they want the answer.
Mm-hmm.
I want the answer. And it's like in my medical clinics, it's like somebody coming and going, can you help my shoulder? Like, maybe. What's going on with your shoulder? Maybe we have the solution, maybe we don't. But the point is that you should take responsibility to step up and take action, and really look Lauren up. You got to look up, click all the links. We're going to have all of her social media links. We have all of her website links right here. It's simple. Click on them. Check out what she's about. See if you're having a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn issue that you need to identify, so you can work on and you can become fulfilled and safe. And really, when you're thinking about it, like, that's the purpose of, or that's the point of, like, when people talk about enlightenment is like a fulfillment of feeling safe and calm and at ease and at oneness. That's really what it's all about. And you're rejecting that if you have any of these responses that are happening automatically in your belief systems, your subconscious. So you need to reach into that. So how can they, what can they do first to learn more about this in your world? Like, what is the first thing they should do to say, how can I look into Lauren, what she's doing, and maybe it can help me out?
Yeah. So a couple of things, and I'll give you these links too, and when we're done, and so you can drop them in the show notes. So I do have a quiz. I have a free quiz called What is Blocking Me from Healthy Love, that you can take advantage of. And it'll talk all about these 4 responses that we spoke about in today's podcast episode. And then I also do a free masterclass that really dives into the nervous system and helps you understand where are these patterns of relational rupture in your life, right? Whether it be with money or with your health or with your significant other. And so we'll drop the link for you to be able to sign up for that too. But always I'm really active on Instagram. Reach out on Instagram. And if you have questions, you can ask me those questions there. Visit my website, laurenzoeller.com. I am an open book, so I'm always here to answer questions.
I love the passion that you have to help people. And I really love the work you're doing to get people to really open up and say, how can I work on me? How can I figure out about me? How can I create better responses neurologically and practice that? Because it doesn't happen immediately. It takes time. Pretty much everything that we talk about goes through the 4 A's. You have to become aware of it, then you have to acknowledge it's there, and then you have to create an action plan, and then you have to attack that action plan and actually take action. And that's really what we're talking about. If you're not aware of something, then you're going to point fingers and blame everybody else around you. You have to become aware. And that takes a little bit of courage, and it takes a little bit of faith and a little bit of you saying, I want a better life, and I know it's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not that your life is bad where it's at, but if you're not fulfilled and you're not content, there's better there for you.
Mm-hmm.
And the better you are, and the more fulfilled and content you are, the more happiness that you will be able to exude to other people, the more you will be able to help other people. And that's really the whole purpose of being here, is to experience stuff, figure stuff out, and help others, really. I mean, that's what we're here for. So Lauren, I really appreciate you. Is there any final thing, statement, or phrase, or anything, that you would like to say to everybody about this conversation or about what you do?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway I would say is, if any of this resonates with you, something that I've learned in my path is that there's nothing wrong with you if you need to ask for help. And so if you feel like you're in that space, reach out and ask for help, whether it's with me or with you or anyone else that you hear on this podcast. Just start to lean into it being okay that you need help and you need support. And I'll just leave with that, because I feel like there's a lot of people out there waiting for permission, and we all have help. So lean into it.
That is so true. Get rid of the ego and stop trying to figure it out yourself, and just go to somebody who's figured some things out and let them help you out.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is such a profound statement, and give them permission. I love that, because that's so true. I give you permission to ask someone for help in an area of your life so you can be more fulfilled, which will turn into more happiness, joy, and contentment, and all of that. So Lauren, absolutely amazing. I really appreciate you. Thank you for being on this podcast, and I look forward to working with you in the future. I've sent people to you, and I will continue, because there's so many people that need to hear this stuff and need to take action on it. Really.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It was such a joy.
Absolutely. This has been another episode of Fix Your BS, where we talk about belief systems in 5 major areas: relationships, business or career, faith or belief, health, and finances or money. And it's all about building a life on your terms. And we always try to find the best people to give you the biggest impact so you can take action toward that future. So build it on your terms. And I look forward to talking to you guys next time.